Hello again and welcome to Last Time Studios Top 10 Things You Might Not Know. I remember the first time watching this film when I was very young. It was so very different and so very captivating. The idea of living inside of someone else and being able to give them superhuman powers like superhuman hearing, it just really resonated with me. So with that being said, here's 10 things about the fantastic film that is Innerspace. So let's get started with number 10. Number 10. Romance on set. Is it just me, or does this seem to be sort of a running theme in a lot of films? Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan met on the set of the film and then they ended up dating. They got married 2 years later on February 14th, 91, but sadly divorced in 2001. When you're in Hollywood, I guess 10 years of marriage seems like a big number. Number 9. During the Cowboy Putter changeover, Robert Picardo had quite a lot of work to do. The first time Robert goes off screen, he's rushing around out of camera view, tearing off his breakaway clothes and getting into the bath. As he's doing this, a stand-in who was only seen from the back moves into the frame from the left. Then a makeup assistant who was stood behind a fake wall at the top of the bath changed the putter wig into the cowboy wig. I guess editing in those days was quite a bit tougher, with having to literally cut and splice the tape together, physical reels of tape that is, so it makes a lot of sense doing it practically rather than worrying about it in the edit. Nice. Number 8. It's all about perspective. After Crimshaw and Kanker are shrunk 50%, there's a few scenes where they're seen with other actors and they had to ensure they looked shrunken. So what they did is they employed forced perspective. For instance, the car scene. The rear of the car is double the size of a normal car rear and was about 20 feet away. During the scene, half-size hands and double-size heads were used. That car scene was hilarious. As they used this method, the filmmakers didn't have to worry about compositing two shots in post-production. Another practical and ingenious way of getting around the issue. Great stuff. Number 7. A big flop. The first cut of the film had overwhelmingly positive feedback from Warner Brothers executives. They really had high hopes it would be the biggest film for the studio, as was the case with Joe Dante and Steven Spielberg's previous collab, Gremlins, in 1984. Even though the film was released on Independence Day weekend, the advertising for the film was terrible at best, and it was an absolute flop at the box office. Lesson learned here? It just goes to show that you never ever rest your hopes on the basis that you actually have something good. Number 6. We might be in the 80s, but we're actually in the future. A quickie, but a really good one. So the film was actually released on widescreen, on VHS. Yep. I bet you didn't know about that. The film is one of the rarest VHS releases to be widescreen back in the late 80s. Where we're going, we don't need no 4:3 aspect ratio, right? Number 5. Derived from an all-time classic. The film's title, Innerspace, was taken from a script of the film that inspired it. That is Fantastic Voyage from 1966. In the film Fantastic Voyage, Innerspace was said on at least 2 occasions. Once by character General Carter, when he said to himself, "Something told me I got into the wrong end of the business. Innerspace." The other by Dr. Duvall in his statement while travelling intravenously through a patient's body. "We stand in the middle of infinity between outer and inner space." Yeah man, it's pretty cool. Number 4. Is this Star Trek? You might actually be surprised by how many Star Trek cast members were in the film. The most famous of which is Robert Picardo, who plays the cowboy, the Doctor in Star Trek Voyager for 7 seasons. For some reason as a kid, I never picked up on them being the same guy. So many different looks. There are also several actors in the film who had guest starred on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, including Henry Gibson, Dick Miller, Andrea Martin and William Shalott, who also guest starred in the original Star Trek series. Number 3. When filming the meat truck scene, the director realised on the day of the shoot that Scrimshaw had no lines, so they hastily wrote a speech for Kevin McCarthy on a piece of paper. In the DVD commentary, Joe Dante says that the speech was wonderfully amusing, but the piece of paper on which it was written was sadly lost. In the film, Tuck's voiceover renders the monologue inaudible.
Yourself jumping from the truck, Jack. You're not gonna bag groceries all your life, are you, Jack?
Sadly, we'll never know what was said. And before our top 2 picks, here's some honourable mentions. John Carpenter was at some point attached to direct the film. Mel Gibson and Robin Williams were considered for the part of Jack Putter. Rick Moranis was also considered to play Jack Putter. At 2 hours, this is the longest running time of any of Joe Dante's films, as he did not know which scenes to cut. The film was the second of 2 films where Dennis Quaid plays a pilot. He also played a pilot in The Right Stuff, 83. This next one is a fun fact. If the movie was scientifically possible, then Putter would have been extremely uncomfortable having Tuck inside his body. A miniature Tuck would fit, but would have the same mass, as in the same number of molecules, as a full-size Tuck. Therefore, since the Earth's gravity remains constant, Tuck would have the same weight as before. Ouch. Number 2, Jello Baby. So yet again, here we are with another practical piece of genius from the filmmakers. CGI, not to be confused with practical special effects, by the way, in the late 80s was rudimentary at best. What's amazing is that all of the cells seen outside of the pod were in fact made out of Jello, according to Peter Curran, the special effects supervisor. Hats off to you, Peter. And coming in at the number 1 slot, the rewrite that made it special. Director Joe Dante originally turned down the film when it was written as a sci-fi spy movie. I have to say, I totally get it. However, the story was rewritten as a sci-fi comedy. Even though in the meantime the film was offered to Robert Zemeckis to make, he didn't want to make it, so Spielberg decided to offer it back to Joe Dante, who then accepted. Dante changed his mind when one of the writers changing up the script said, imagine if someone like Dean Martin is put into a space pod, miniaturized into a syringe, and then injected into the body of someone like Jerry Lewis. Seriously, what a pitch. That would have saved it for me. Well, that's it for this week. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.